Good evening. Hey there, thanks for joining me. My name is Jennifer and I am a Soul Whisperer coach. Thank you for coming into my group. And tonight I'm going to be sharing with you depression and purpose and how they are intricately intertwined. And I have quite a few notes here, so I'm going to keep it to if I can, 20 minutes, maybe 25. We're going to do some breathing exercises, going to give you some tips. I'm going to help you understand your emotional guidance system, and we're going to be sharing, hey Patricia, thanks for joining. Mwah. I'm going to be sharing even a little bit about my experience because, as a coach, I do like to share what I have gone through so I can help other people. I'm coming from a space where I can understand and relate. So let's get to it. All right, so your depression and purpose and how they are intricately intertwined. So without purpose, you need to really think about this. Without purpose, you don't have a goal, you don't have something to look towards, you don't have that feeling of something to work towards. And what's actually happening here is because you are life force energy, you have a soul, and in order for you to feel that energy to flow through you, you need to have things to focus on. Without having things to focus on, life becomes very boring, very wishy-washy, you have no direction. So your purpose just needs to be important to you. There's two ways we can talk about this. Purpose as well can just be finding joy in your life. So some people have purpose where they have a job that gives them purpose. Like this really gives me purpose, my work. But I have other purposes as well. I love my family. I have other ideas around that. So you just need to have one though. So even if your purpose is your family, that's wonderful. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's healthy for you, it's something that you are feeling good about, and it's helping you move through life and something to work towards. So if you don't have that, you don't have that drawing, you don't have that pulling point, and then what happens is you feel quite lost and not a lot of life force is summoned, and this is where you slow down. This is where you start to create negative chatter. This is where things can go downhill, and depending on an individual, it can go downhill quite fast. I know when I experienced my depression, it was absolutely that. I was doing so much in my life, and I went from pretty much doing all these things to having no real plan. And it was, some people could say, well, that was just your circumstances, or that's what was going on around you. But actually looking back, what I've learned from it is it's more about how we think and feel about it. We absolutely, some people may not like this, and I don't mean this in an awful way at all, but we absolutely we are creating the depression through our own thoughts and feelings. And that's a good thing to know, because that means if it's coming again, you're quite aware, and also you can actually create yourself out of it. So you can create different thoughts and feelings. Now that's easier said than done, because I know when I was in depression, I was one of these, and it's different for everyone, just depends on where you are and what's going on. I could not move. It was that bad. I had no energy. And that's what happens with depression, because you're actually moving down an emotional scale, which I'm about to show you in a moment. And as you move down into the negative emotion, you have less and less access to energy. So I remember just having very little energy. I could barely think. I wasn't hungry. I wouldn't even get up for myself to make anything. It was not even within my grasp. So it's all very well for people to say if someone's depressed, oh, just snap out of it. It's not like that. It's a chemical reaction as well, which I'm going to jump to more towards the end. But we absolutely create it through our thoughts and our feelings. And like I say, you can create yourself out of it. And if you're just jumping in, I have a lot of notes, so excuse me if I look down, because it just helps me. So all depression is by choice, but it's done at a conscious and an unconscious level. And when I say it's by choice, if you're not aware of your thoughts and feelings, if you're not paying attention to how you feel, then you are becoming quite unconscious to what's coming. And this will happen with some people. They'll become quite close to negative emotion, where they are feeling not so great, they're worrying, there's doubt, there's fear, and when they're doing that for long periods of time and they're in it, they don't actually realize that this is not the way I'm supposed to feel. Because when you get in something, you get so used to it, it's very hard to recognize the difference until someone says to you, are you okay? Or is there something going on? But sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you can't see it. If you're someone who's normally used to being happy and up in life, you will definitely feel it. But if you don't pay attention when it's approaching, then you are really creating it at an unconscious level. So the other way is through, being conscious, becoming aware, being aware of your thoughts and feelings, catching yourself when you're feeling down. Now, I'm not talking about you're not allowed to experience negative emotion. Of course you are. But if you can feel that it's a stronger feeling welling up within you and it's happening daily and you're wanting to do less, and this is not just happening over one day, because sometimes we feel like we just need a Saturday or a Sunday to do nothing. But if this is happening every single day for long periods, then you could be going into that space. Okay, I'm not suggesting you are, but you have to really monitor yourself. So now I'm just going to show you, and I've written this back to front because Facebook Lives are back to front. They switch. So here goes. Okay, so emotional guidance. Oh, that's a bit close. So what happens is you have your emotional guidance, and this is the most powerful guidance that, I'm having to shove it right up there, I'll bring it up in a moment, but this is the most powerful guidance that will guide you in your life all of the time, and that's your emotional guidance. So when you feel negative emotion, you need to pay attention to it. So this is what happens in the coming of, a form of depression. So basically, you're meant to be living up here in joy, contentment, happiness, peace. Contentment's just really good. You don't have to be in joy. You may not experience that a lot or often. You may have moments of it, but your natural state is of a positive mindset and positive emotion. What happens to someone who starts to experience on the way to depression is start worrying a lot. You move into more negative emotion where you may hate yourself or you hate other people, resent them, blame them. You start to feel quite insecure, feeling guilty a lot. You could be down in grief as well, just depending on what's happened. If you've had something happen with a family member or someone pass away or anything like that. And then fear. So you're moving further and further down the emotional scale, really towards, like from here on, that way, that's all negative emotion, to despair. Despair is a real signal of, hanging around there for long periods. You're working further and further and further towards powerlessness, okay? And that's what it is. It's a feeling of constant powerlessness. And if you can feel that often, just know that you're heading towards that negative emotion. You want to catch yourself. Let's flip this around. It's okay to worry a little bit. It's okay. It's normal. But if you're finding yourself worrying a lot, hating a lot, if you're doing this majority of the time, guess what? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to end up down that place. What happens is you'll tilt those scales. So when you're up there feeling high on the end of that seesaw, you're feeling really good. But then what happens is, if not, it drops right down into the negative emotion, and then it's a hard trek up. So you've got to catch yourself before, you start taking off in that direction, in that negative emotion more often. So you just have to weigh that up. So what that means is, during the day, just see percentage-wise, how much of the day do I feel like I'm, feeling really good. If you're doing 60, 70%, most days, then you're doing great. You can top it right up there and go 90% some days, but you just want to be over that halfway mark. If you're dipping down below the halfway mark, feeling more of the negative emotion more of the time, so more 70% of the time or 60% of the time you're feeling that negative emotion, I'm not saying you're going to be depressed, but you could be working your way to that space. But it happens, it depends on the individual. It happens over time because you have the beauty of your negative emotion that is telling you, if this keeps happening, I don't like this feeling. Where is this taking me? And it's like the rabbit hole. How far down do I want to go? And unfortunately, some people will hit rock bottom before they stop. They'll wait till it gets really bad. And that's not always a bad thing. They'll wait till they hit rock bottom before they decide enough's enough, I'm going to crawl out. But you can actually stop yourself before. And as I say, you're allowed to have negative emotion, but you want to gauge how much of it am I having in my day. So that's your emotional guidance system. So you really want to be up there more and more in that positive emotion as much as you can. Okay, if anyone's got any questions throughout this life, please feel free to punch them in. If there's something I'm explaining and it's not making sense, punch that in too. Okay, now moving on to, this is again leading back to your thoughts and your feelings create your depression. All depression is learned. In fact, all of our behaviour is learned. You are born brilliant, beautiful. Sorry, my nose is running. It's weather's crazy. And perfect when you are a baby. You are so free of resistance and free of, you haven't lived through life yet, but you are so connected to your soul, so connected to source. And so what happens is, as we move through life, we learn from society, we learn from our parents, we learn from our friends, we learn from whatever is around us, and some of it we are choosing and some of it we are doing it at an unconscious level. So you may accept some behaviors or you may reject some. You get to pick and choose. The beauty is it's all changeable. It doesn't matter what's happened in your past. Where you are standing right now, you have the power to change it, and it comes with just making a decision and then sticking with it. Okay, so all depression is learned. And then some people might say, well, how does genetics come into that? Because I've sort of experienced this where, there's a question that's asked from a physician, etc. Has there anyone in your past been diagnosed with depression? And I refuse to answer that question because, that just puts that into your file, and then that makes it look like you may be likely to experience that at times. I don't want to put a label on myself. And so, yes, of course, children that are born, they're born with everything inside of them. And so can depression be somewhere in their genes in that child? No, what is in their genes it's the programming, and it's the programming that starts from some of it when they're in the womb, but mostly when they're born. And it's really what they're picking up, and it's what they're mirroring and modeling from their parents. So if they see a parent who's often depressed, they will either accept that behavior or reject it. So you have a choice. You can take on the vibration, you can take on the behavior, or you can actually reject it. And it has to do with the emotional guidance. While babies are so close to their source, they very much are so connected to that. Some of the vibration, yes, they'll pick up from their surroundings of the people they live with, but they listen mostly to their source. That's why children, 2-year-olds and even children older, and if you let them, they won't listen to you because they cannot serve two masters. They are so connected to their source, and they go with what feels best. And that's what happens with, is it genetics really? It's you could probably look and say, okay, kind of person open, it is in their genes, it's there. But that doesn't mean it has to stay. Everything is changeable, and it's only what we lock into our own minds. Okay, so let's see where I'm at now. So I talked a little bit about my experience with depression in the beginning, so I fully get it when people, You know, we all experience it in different ways. The good thing is you can come out of it. And there's different ways you can come out of it. But you can actually come out of it through just making a decision. It can be very hard, but just deciding, I don't want to feel like this, or I don't want to be like this anymore. I want things to get better. I want a little bit. You're just actually sometimes reaching for a bit more. Hope's a bit far for someone who's depressed. It depends on how far down they are, but there is internal guidance, there is emotional guidance within you. If you just let things go a little bit, let it out, you will actually be guided by your soul. It will call you and it will give you the information through a feeling or a thought, because it is very tricky when you are in some of those dark places in the past. I know for me it was. And for me it was what my mother said to me, actually, which worked. It wasn't medication or anything like that. I wasn't on any sort of medication. I didn't even go to a doctor. Actually, I did, but there was no prescription for depression or anything like that. So, tips for how to find your way to your happiest self. Well, when you're depressed, you're way down here. Happiness is all the way up the other end of the spectrum, too far to reach. I actually do remember, now that I say that, when I was experiencing my depression many years ago, and now I know how some bipolar people feel, I'd have these highs and then I would drop. So what's going on there is I'm probably reaching too far, and then I would have the experience and then I'd drop back down. And I'd do that several times. But what would happen is, and it was exhausting, because you're up here high, got all the energy, and then you drop back down, you feel even worse, where you have access to very little energy. But the beauty is, as I kept doing that, I was building a bridge. So the more I did that in time, eventually I just got there and stayed there to my, I wouldn't say overly happy self, but where I started to feel normal, and then life started to feel more normal, and I started to feel more content, and then I started to feel happier again. So here's some tips to get to your happiest self. So if you're feeling, depressed at all, or if you have been, just remember this. And when I say depressed, I'm talking about strong depression. But even when you're feeling, sometimes you just say, I feel a bit depressed today, but you're not really meaning the full strength of it. You're just feeling down. Go easy on yourself, okay? That's one tip. Keep things simple and to a minimum. So when you are feeling a bit low or down, just do easy things, do gentle things, do kind things. Get outside for 20 minutes a day, and I'm not necessarily suggesting exercise. Exercise is amazing though, but it depends on where you are and how you feel, just in the sunlight or in nature or in some warmth, because nature, it has its magic of its own. Without you doing anything, even if you got out there a little bit every day, it does affect you, okay? Because it causes you to let go and release. It causes you to focus on simplicities. It causes you to let go of some of the resistance. And everything is energy. So the plants that are around you, they are breathing life force, and they are feeling. And so you can't help by being affected by that if you go out there every day, okay? So one thing I want to talk a little bit about was serotonin. So there's been studies where people say, they did a study on people who were depressed and they were low in serotonin. And then I've heard other studies where they're saying, no, it's not serotonin. But here's the deal. The way you think and the way you feel controls everything. It controls your hormones. It controls all of it. You think your hormones are controlling you, but actually you are controlling them. So what happens over time is, as things break down, if you're not feeling good and you're going into distress and you're going down into that powerlessness feeling down the bottom there, you do start to affect the way your body responds. And then your body chemically starts creating and doing things and not creating things. And so you get these imbalances. So, And then after it comes, okay, well, you're low in serotonin or whatever it could be, whatever those neurotransmitters are. And it can be helpful, and this is where I'm moving on to how do you get some help. It can actually be helpful to get the right help. So serotonin, absolutely, if it's necessary, serotonin uptake, if that's what you're prescribed, will help you get feeling better until you can actually start to feel better naturally. So don't deny yourself what it is that you need to give to your body until it can get strong again. Sometimes you need to give it that kick again, but understand it is not that your serotonin levels or any other hormones are doing things on their own. They are not. It is down to how you think and how you feel about yourself and the world around you. You are affecting all your particles all of the time. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, so getting the right kind of help. Okay, so for example, nutrition is a big thing as well if you've been depressed or stressed. The right kind of medicine, so finding the right kind of doctor. Another little quick story, I went to, over a year ago, I had some experiences happening to me through stress. But the energy, what was going on was I was getting out ahead of myself too much. I was trying to make things happen too much, but I could feel myself reaching out beyond racing, trying to make that energy speed up. And it really put me off kilter and out of balance. So I went to a doctor and he prescribed antidepressants. I might have looked depressed because I was worn out. I was at the end of it though. I was actually just wanting to feel good again. So I did take something, but it was more just to sleep because I had some anxiety. But you've got to listen to your gut. You've got to listen to... So I did listen to my gut, and I went to a naturopath, and she specialises in hormones, menopausal women. I'm perimenopause, but it's more about your stress as well, your stress levels and your diet and everything combined. And our bodies are changing as we move through different phases in our life. So getting the right medicine, getting the right natural medicine, even if you have to get synthetic medicine, I'm not against medicines, things like antidepressants, etc. You just need to do your homework and make sure it's a fit for you. The thing I would say for antidepressants, I've heard different stories, but it's sort of like a band-aid. Now, it's not even going over the top of the hole, it's going somewhere else. That hole that needs filling needs to be filled up with something else. So it's actually not even... long term, it's not going to help unless you actually look inside of what's going on emotionally and mentally and what's going on in your life and adjust things and fill that cup up. Those antidepressants are really just going to help you, I guess, skim through life. So they do affect people in different ways, but and I'm not against it. Like if that's what you feel you need, that will help you give that lift. But then you also need to look at more of the holistic approach of other things, because that's what's going to fill up that gap. Because what can happen is in 10 years' time, it can happen again and the hole gets bigger. And that's all that's happening. So finding the right medicine that's right for you, whether it's synthetic or natural, whatever help you can get that's going to help you and make you feel better is powerful. The other thing is finding at least one goal in your day. So again, depends on where you are on that scale of depression. Like I've experienced it quite severe, but then other people could say, no, that's nothing. I had it like super bad. There's different levels of it. It doesn't matter. It's just what it means to you. But thinking back now, I couldn't focus on a goal. But you can take a goal just to something simple, like one thing. Okay, today my goal is I must get out in the sunshine and just put my legs in the sunshine or in a bit of water or something for 20 minutes every day. Not that I was prepared to drive to a beach or anything, but just outside somewhere, put my feet on the grass, something. Find some little goal that you can do for at least 20 or 30 days, because what happens is as you change your behavior and physiology, and physiologically, you're taking yourself somewhere different, you're actually expecting change. So So you're telling your brain, you're telling your mind, you're telling your body, you're telling the universe, I actually want change. So when you physically do something that's different a little bit every day, in time, the change will come, you see. So that's one little tip for helping you get the focus off the self. I found that in my experiences when I had depression, I had so much time to focus on myself. And you know, the mind chatter, especially when you've not got any goals, the negative mind chatter. So you'd really just go sort of into yourself in a negative way. Now, focusing on yourself is powerful and wonderful when it's done in a positive way. But when it's done in a negative way, with negative self-chatter, putting yourself down, negative self-talk, then you know it becomes a problem, and that's another path to leading you into that space of possible depression. So getting the focus off the self is very important. And I know sometimes you might not have a lot of energy, but get out there wherever you can and do other things. Do things for other people a little bit. Again, depends on how you feel. But do something that gets the focus off you, even if you're colouring in, because it depends on your situation. Just something that takes you away from you. Because what happens is when you do that, you are not focusing in a negative way, okay? Now that's people who are feeling like that. When you're feeling positive, you can absolutely lap things up all for yourself and have positive chatter and focus on yourself. But how are you focusing on yourself? In a positive way or a negative way? Okay, here's some really important things you want to hear. Depression doesn't have to be part of your life. It doesn't have to be, even if you've had it before. However, if it does come or you start to experience a little bit of it, just make it your friend and go, I remember you. This is okay. You're giving me guidance. Don't push things back or push them away. Just go, oh, thank you, my friend, for reminding me. And remember that it is temporary. Everything is temporary. When you look at anything that's going on, I know I've been through some experiences with my family, my children, and because I was in such a state of a very strong connection to who I am with my soul, I would just be like, yep, it's temporary, this will pass. And when you can do that with things, again, if you're showing yourself that and saying that, and you're saying that to the universe, that becomes your experience. So it's temporary. You don't have to be locked in. You don't have to be there forever. Even though it can feel like it, it is temporary. It is temporary. Say that to yourself. This is temporary. It's going to change. It's temporary, okay? You are not alone. Others have gone through it and have come out the other side. It's good to know. Okay, breathing exercise. Right, so now, before I start the breathing exercise, I have to have a drink because I'm just a little dry. Okay, now, this breathing exercise, actually I was going to do a different one, but today I did some yoga. Another really great thing to do when you are experiencing anything stressful, or if you're feeling like you are a bit depressed or have been depressed, or even if you are depressed. Anything mind-body connection, and it takes you the focus off yourself, is really powerful. So here is the breathing exercise that anybody can do, no matter what your situation is or wherever you are. So I learnt this one today in yoga. I have done it many times before. It's just been a long time since I've done it. So you just want to get this hang loose thing happening. You take your dominant hand. Okay, so if your right hand is dominant, then you're going to cover your right nostril, and same for the left. You're going to cover the left nostril. I know that looks back to front because Facebook Lives are like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is, before we start, now I'm going to use this for anything. So this isn't just about depression. If you've got some negative emotion there, if there's some frustration or resentment or anger or anything that feels a little bit I want you now to just close your eyes and take a deep breath in and breathe out, and just recognize that feeling. Okay? Good. So now you can open your eyes. And now I want you to just do this with me. We're going to do this 10 times. So you're going to block off your, whichever side is your dominant. So block it off and breathe in. And hold. And then you're going to breathe out the other side. Out that other nostril. So again, that's 2. And breathe out. And breathe in. And breathe out. 3. Breathe in. Breathe out your other nostril, keeping your mouth closed. 5. Again. 6. Doing well. This is 7 and breathing out. 8 and breathing out. 9 and breathing out. And one more. Breathe in, this is 10 and breathing out. And just close your eyes and relax. I don't know about you, but my nostrils feel really clean. You get a lot of oxygen moving through there. And now just feel that there is nothing there right now. Feel that. Can you feel that? Can you feel there is nothing there right now, that negative emotion is gone? You've just freed yourself up. Okay, I'd love to hear if that happened for you. And what's happening there is, as you breathe, your breathing is really powerful because you're focusing on something that takes you away from negative emotion. Anything that takes you away from negative emotion is going to make you feel good because innately who you are is pure positive emotion. So again, I'm not saying you won't have negative emotion in life. It's there, it's meant to be there, it's your guidance. But distract yourself as much as you can so that you can let go of negative emotion. And if that means focusing on something that makes you feel good, like breathing, meditating, painting, even just smelling some incense, whatever that is for you, walking, riding a bike, reading a book, something that distracts you and takes you away from negative emotion is going to make you feel freer. Now, for someone who's experiencing depression, I would recommend you do this every day, twice a day, morning and night, okay, at least, and do it for at least 30 days. Because what you're going to find is, as you do this, you will strengthen your connection again. Because all that's happening is in any case where someone who is experiencing depression, you're standing here normally if you're, a happy person. And what's happened is you've broken away, this part of you is broken away, and your soul is still here, but you've actually broken away and you've moved further and further away from who you are. So when you do things that make you feel good, it brings you back and it brings you closer and at times intertwined with who you are. And that comes through the form of positive emotion. So you feel yourself go away and come back, go away and come back. And you might do this throughout the day. Sometimes you might go really far away and go, oh, I don't like that, and come back. But if you've pulled yourself away and you've pulled yourself away for a long time, it's like that track is being covered. And it's hard sometimes to find that track again, but you can, and you can do it just with things that don't require too much emotional involvement, because I know it is very hard trying to come back when you're struggling to feel emotion. So someone who is depressed can feel quite numb, And a very important thing I'm going to say to you, if you experience this with other people, it's very important that you let them express their anger. Because when they are depressed, if they're quiet for long periods, they are more powerless. When they come out, the first emotion they're going to experience mostly will be anger. If they come out and they're angry, there's a tendency to want to calm them or push them back, or get them not to do that. You are pushing them back down into their depression. So they've got to move through the negative emotion, and the first protocol mostly is going to be anger, frustration, and it will get less, but it can be a trek, and there'll be some blaming with them that may go on. But just understand and recognize that is normal behavior. Because that's their breath of fresh air. If they go back to being quiet, they've gone back into the corner. So that's just one thing to recognize. Another really powerful NLP technique is this. Language is so powerful, and I'm about to finish, so thank you for staying with me for this long. It is the word depression, it's locked in, okay? Or if you say like, I'm depressed, or I'm in depression, or you think about depression, mostly people who are depressed. I know I did. I didn't even know I was depressed. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't actually know what was going on half the time. If you have experienced it, or are experiencing it, or even if you know this for sure, if this ever happens, you can change that language to depressing. I am depressing. Now, what that means is you're not depressing someone else, but when you change the language, you free it up. Depression locks you in. I am depressing is it's changing, it's expanding, it's moving. So just by changing a word around something changes the way you perceive it and the way you think and feel about it. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining me. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Doing things to keep yourself at optimum that make you feel good and happy, you will keep your health, your well-being then close to your heart. Recognizing if you're going off in areas for too long a time and doing things to readjust is helpful. And if you want to reach out to me, I do 15-minute free chats where you can speak to me about my business, and I can find out what it is, that you may want to move forward with. I offer some wonderful packages. So big love. Thanks for joining. See you again next Thursday. Bye for now.